Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. How's everyone doing today? I'm on a couple minutes before class so that we can make some decisions because I do have a hard stop at noon for me. Usually we go over a little bit, but today we are going to have a bit of a hard stop. So I'm going to try to get this in an hour, and we have a fun exercise that we're going to do. If you've been around here before, you know that every once in a while I do one of these timed challenges, which can be a little stressful at the end, but they're really fun and they teach us so much about loosening up and then also kind of what we need to spend time on and what we don't with watercolor. So I'm going to be taping these down, and then in just a second I'm going to have you guys help me vote on the picture that we're going to be doing. If you want to do this with me today, you're going to want to get 3 pieces of paper, or you could do this in your sketchbook, however you want to do it. I've cut 3 pieces to 5 by 7. What is a watercolor painting supposed to look like? You're afraid yours are too watery. This is really up to you, kind of how you enjoy it stylistically. Some people work drier, some people work wetter. If you like how it looks, then that's how it's supposed to look. As a matter of fact, it's almost probably a good thing if you think yours is a little too watery, because oftentimes I see beginners who want those watery effects, and they're too afraid to use very much water. So it's actually kind of harder to learn to use more than to kind of reduce the amount a little bit. This is just a washi tape that I'm using to stick this down. I've got a bunch of washi tape. I was trying to test out some different washi tapes, maybe for my supplies, and this just came in a random pack. Most washi tapes are pretty similar. All right, so we're going to getting started in a minute. For those of you who don't know, my name's Lacey. I'm the artist behind Rebel Unicorn Crafts, and we do a live watercolor class every other week. Sometimes we paint one specific thing, sometimes we answer questions, sometimes we do little dice roll games, or sometimes we do a timed challenge, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be painting the same thing 3 times. So if you want to participate, and I recommend you do because this is fun, at least I think it's really fun. We're going to do one where we're going to take 20 minutes to paint it. And we've got a second one that's going to be 10 minutes. And the last one, we're only going to have 5 minutes to paint this. So let's actually take a second to figure out what we're going to be painting today. So get ready in the comments. I've got a couple different options. We'll narrow it down first. So put thumbs up if you like this one, put thumbs down if you don't. Hi, Katie. This is our first option. I think I'm going to be using mine today. Any watercolors are going to be fine for this, though. I'm going to be using my Unicorn Food. This one, I'm going to put this in the medium feeling palette, or medium pile. This one, thumbs up or thumbs down if you like this one. I'm just trying to kind of narrow down because I've got I went overboard with finding the reference photos. I've got 6 of them. So we need to narrow down to maybe 1 or 2 that we can officially vote for. Okay, this one people really like. Cool. This one is another option, kind of a foggy forest type scene. All right, people like that one too. A nice kind of bright farmland field or all right, we're getting some downs on that one. It's out. This one is, I was trying to find some tulip fields ones because I thought that would be kind of fun. We might have to crop this one a little bit if we were to do this one to make it a little simpler, especially for this. This would be the hardest one to do probably out of it. Down, all right, lots of downs. the last one's a little bit more of a fall inspired. We can always push colors, so if you're craving a little bit more, we can push a little bit more color with this. All right, I'm gonna put this one, we're gonna decide between these three. So this is 1, this is 2, and this one is 3. So just put 1, 2, or 3 in the comments. Just keeping an eye. So far, 1 is in the lead. All right, we're doing 1. We're gonna try it. Now this is gonna be, I am gonna be editing out a few pieces of this just because we do have limited time. Also, if you wanna participate, if you wanna take a screenshot, here, I'll hold this up a little bit closer. Now is a good time to take a screenshot for the reference photo. I will try to keep it in view though, while we're actually painting it. All right, you got about 3 more seconds. Screenshots aren't allowed. Oh no! Is that something I have to enable? I don't see a setting. Well, I'm sorry you're not able to do that. Yeah, I don't have that unenabled. Okay, so we're going to keep this here. Again, as a refresher, we're going to be painting this 3 times. So I've got a little stopwatch here so that we can keep track of the time. We're going to start with the 20-minute one. This one is fun to do. So yeah, we're doing 20-minute, 10, and then 5 minutes with these. This is a really fun exercise to do to kind of learn to loosen up a little bit and maybe not get so stuck into the details. In order to make the most of time, I will be using a heat gun today. I will try to give you guys a warning before I turn it on in case you need to kind of turn down the volume. But from what I'm told, TikTok does a pretty good job of actually muting or reducing that noise. I'm going to give my watercolors a spritz. So that they're nice and wet when we're ready to go. And what we want to do is, because we don't have all the time in the world, let's take just a second to talk about the different elements that are at play here. All right, so first of all, we do have a beautiful sky. I love doing sunset, so this is going to be fun. It reflects into the water, so we can actually do the sky and the water all in one layer. Then we can dry, and then we can put in these details back here. There's actually a second little offshoot, so you can see there's 1 layer and then there's technically 2. We can decide to either edit that out or keep that in depending on kind of time constraints. And then we have these big, beautiful bushes and this path. I am a little worried. I'm going to edit this part out, that little dock, just because we're working with time here. So I'm going to pretend like there's not a little dock. We'll keep the path and then we'll keep these bushes, and we're going to see how much time we actually have to try to put in some details. This might get a little tricky in this area. This is the part I'm most concerned about as far as figuring out. Just so you know, I haven't actually painted any of the ones I showed you today because I like to kind of come in fresh with you guys so that you can kind of see the approach of how I would even try to figure out how to paint something the first time. All right, we'll keep that here, and we're going to get started in just a second. I am going to take a second to just mix up this kind of nice purpley color before we actually do get started, so that I at least have that. The rest of the colors I think I can kind of mix on the go, but that one I do need to kind of adjust because it's like a deep purpley blue color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little, and I want quite a bit of it, so I'm going to put some water in here. And then I'm going to take some of this. This is kind of like an ultramarine, kind of like a Prussian type blue. I'm going to start that as the base. And I always have a little tester strip just so I kind of know the colors I have going. And I'm going to dip into this purple. You could also do this with a pink. That would work well too. Just kind of testing as I go along. We're actually pretty close to the color I want. Let's just do one more. No, one more. Just kidding. Mix that in really well. All right, there we go. I've got a nice purple. It's maybe not as dark as the other one, but that's okay. So the way today's class is going to work is that I'm going to start that timer. I will talk through as best I can what I'm doing, but because we are on a time limit, this might get trickier and trickier to do as I do this. Okay. Oh, the other thing I am going to prepare, because I do kind of want to be able to lift out for some of these clouds potentially. I don't know if I'm going to yet, but I'm going to take some paper towel and just set this part to the side so that if I want to, I can lift things really easily without having to kind of mess around with my brush and things. All right. Really quick before we get started, let's just make sure I'm not... the brand of the palette is, so it's my Unicorn Food one. All the main ones are my manufactured ones here, but then I leave spaces open in this palette, so it comes with 18 colors because as long as you find half pans, you can fill them with whatever colors that you like. If there are additional colors or metallics or neons that you want to add, or any handmade colors, these are my handmade colors that I have in here. Right here. They're some of my favorite ones that I use, so I stick them in there as well. So yeah. And then as far as painter's tape, I usually either use a washi tape or like a painter's tape like this, just to do that. All right, so we're gonna get started. Just to tell you really quick what I'm about to do. I'm gonna be adding in this purple kind of up here. I will be dipping into water, which is off screen. Unfortunately, I can't fit everything into the screen here, to kind of soften, going into a little bit of some pinks and some yellows. And then I'm going to be using some water as well as some yellow and just kind of dropping that in and bringing that all the way down to the bottom, kind of softening as I go. So is everybody ready to go? Give me a thumbs up in the comments if you want to, or if you're ready to go for your 20-minute painting. I'm just going to get a little water. All right, we're ready to go. So we're going to be starting right now. Okay. I'm actually using, today I'm using Fabriano watercolor paper. It's not my favorite one. So I'm putting that there, washing my brush, and let's just kind of soften. This has a nice kind of varied sky, so I don't think we need to stress too much. Putting a little pink in there. Skies have just really interesting textures, so we don't need to worry too much about everything being absolutely perfect here. This is an area where I already know I'll be able to kind of loosen up even potentially more. But we do have lots of time with this one comparatively. All right, I'm getting a little yellow in my brush, and let's really try to get some of that right along here. Maybe even putting a little orange into it. My paper is pretty nice and wet. You can see that there. And I probably could have gone a little more vibrant. I'm also going to bring that down into here. And let's even grab some of this even more vibrant. I could go even more vibrant with pretty much everything if I wanted to, because watercolor does dry lighter than when you initially put it down. Just kind of softening everything down here so I don't have a harsh stop line. And before this dries too much, I'm going to try to just kind of add in a little bit here, put a little more water in my brush. I'm going to encourage some little like kind of back runs and things to happen to kind of get those clouds rather than lifting. I probably should have just grabbed some of that really neon color. Let's put a little of that over there. We're not going for perfection here. I mean, you can go for perfection if you want to, but the goal of this is to loosen up and just kind of try to dissect a painting and figure out what it's worth spending time on. All right, so over here we do have some more kind of bluey type reflection, so I'm going to put a little blue in my brush and then also grab a little of that. And I'm going to put that over here. I don't want that to go too much into that yellow personally, so I'm going to wash it a little bit. I just want a little bit of that kind of blue and maybe a little of that purple. Again, I'm going to wash that down. There we go. We have our water and we have our sky done. All right, for time's sake, I'm kind of making note of how wet this is. You do usually want to, before you try to make it dry, you'd want to make sure you don't have any puddles that are sitting on here. And if you do have puddles, you can always take your brush, dry it off, and then I don't actually really have any puddles, but let's just pretend you can just grab that there. See how there was those little dots of water with a dry brush? We can always grab them. If you had some down here, that's how you're going to want to remove that. Then we can use the hair dryer or a heat gun on a low speed. I'm going to turn this on. If you're sensitive to noises, now is a good time to just turn the volume down for about 20 seconds. And that's going to happen in 3, 2, and 1. All right, that should be pretty well dry. So I'm going to set this to the side while we kind of figure out, I'm going to let this cool down because if it's still really hot, it can affect how the watercolor absorbs and things like that. But what we need to prepare to do next are these layers of the mountain. So I am going to have to mix up a really dark, I think kind of a dark purpley color would be really pretty. All right, I'm going to put a little water here. You can either do this with a spray bottle or you can just put a little water in your brush. And I am, just for today's sake, going to grab some of this because I know in the future ones it's going to be hard to mix our own black and stuff because we won't have quite as much time. Let's put a little of that purple in. I usually wash my brush between picking up colors if I'm going into a lighter color from the one I was previously mixing. Let's just check that. Got a nice kind of purple undertone to it. Perfect. All right, so we want that to fall. What I want you to think about when you're doing this, and since I do have a little more time on this one, let's take a second to actually explain this. Now, just because this falls here at that third point, if your painting is not in a place where it needs to fall there, like for example, I actually think my little mountains would look better if I brought them down further. I should have actually made that yellow a little bit up higher, but I want that yellow to peek through. So my mountains are actually going to fall kind of along here. You're going to want to actually take a look at what your sky is doing and then adjust to kind of where you want to place things. So these kind of have these nice slopes up and down. So we're going to just start from one edge. All right. So I want it to be about here. Okay. So let's try to put that up here a little bit so I can see. Bringing that up with some of this color in. We got a nice little slope and maybe it's got a little second part onto it. I'm gonna refill my brush. And I'm going to try to actually define my horizon line real quick because I'm having trouble keeping it kind of straight. Bring that down. Maybe up and down just a little bit before another little peak. Maybe up again here. There we go. We have our first layer of these kind of mountains or kind of volcanic island type shapes. All right, so we could dry at this point and then move on to adding in this little extra offshoot over here, which I might do in a second. But what I'm actually going to wait to do, or what I'm going to do first, is there are a couple little ripples in that water, and I want to reflect some of these colors in there. So I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm just going to put a tiny bit of like that pink in here. Let's just double check that that's not going to be way too bright. It is a little bit too bright, so I'm going to put a little more water in my brush and kind of knock off a little bit because I want these to be kind of subtle. I'm just going to take the tip of my brush and I want to add in a little texture. So I'm just going to kind of make a couple little ripples with these colors, maybe even daring to grab a couple little bit of brighter areas. Most of this is going to be covered, so I don't need to do a ton. But I just want to add a little texture. I'm going to wash my brush and I'm going to do the same thing with that yellow to get a little more concentrated yellow in there. All right, we're getting close to being halfway through this painting. And then let's reflect a little bit of this purpley type color as well. It's going to be a little bit subtle, but it's going to give us some texture. Ooh, maybe that was not so subtle. All right. Now I've got a little bit of texture in here. So I am going to now take a second to dry this so that we can move on to adding in those additional layers. So again, if you're sensitive to noise, now is a good time to turn your volume down a little bit for about 20 or 30 seconds. And that's going to be happening in 3, 2, and 1. All right, that should be nice and dry. Somebody says this might not have been a good first video. I do recommend trying to jump in because you might, even if at the end of this, you're like, this was not what I wanted, you're going to learn something from this. You'll have discovered something. Like, for example, a lot of times people want to avoid those blooms, but man, they really do kind of create this beautiful effect that it is kind of like some clouds. And you might accidentally create that. And you might also kind of figure out why it's happening a little bit as you're doing it. Like, oh, I went back there when I thought I shouldn't, or maybe I used a little more water, that kind of a thing. All right, I'm going to modify this one just a bit. I'm going to make it a little bit darker because I am going to make, there is that second, this little offshoot here. I don't know how well you can actually see that in this, but there is this little offshoot that actually does kind of pop out a little bit more, so I'm making it a bit darker. And let's just pop that in. We're just going to kind of make one come right like here. I guess I didn't actually need to do those other little bits over there, but that's okay. Just creating a little bit of depth. And this one might be a step that we end up editing out in the upcoming ones when we have less time. I'm going to wash my brush and put a bunch of water in there, and then I'm going to just kind of put a little tiny bit of this grayish color in, just so I can kind of see, because I want to just make a little note for myself of where this little path is going to be. So it's going to come to about here, and then it's going to kind of come here, and then here. That's in general, it doesn't need to be exactly that, but just as a little kind of reminder to myself of, hey, I want to not put anything right here. This is the part I'm the most worried about. And that is these bushes with all these beautiful flower type things. So what we're going to start by doing is we need to get some green going. So let's mix up kind of a bluish, greenish type color. I'm just actually grabbing every green I have and mixing them all together. That could be kind of pretty, and then we can dip into some of those blues to get a darker color. And then we're going to be dipping straight into these along here. All right, so I'm actually going to start by just putting some water in my brush, and I'm just going to pop kind of along the top. You can see there's water right there. And then let's drop in, I'm just kind of dropping in a little bit of that green. We have about 6.5 minutes left in our first painting. I'm going to do the same kind of over here. Just wetting part of that area. I want there to be variation, and by adding it to water, it's going to be a little bit lighter at this part, which is kind of what I want because I'm actually going to work in kind of 2 stages here. Things that are closer to us in general are things that are going to be brighter, and this will kind of help push that part back just a little bit. All right, then I'm going to grab some of this nice pink color. Oh, oops, wrong one. And maybe a little bit of this red. And let's just kind of pop this in a couple areas. Oop, I do not have enough in my brush at all. Okay. Ooh. I'm getting too much there. The pressure is starting to get to me. Can we even imagine in a few minutes when we go over to even less time? Just kind of popping in those colors, adding in, because some of those actually do kind of pop out. Trying to create a little bit of that texture. Okay, so far that's not terrible. This is the part, again, I'm the most worried about. And instead of having to dry this, because we have 5 minutes left, I'm going to dry my brush off, and I'm just going to kind of squeeze some of this water. I want this to be a little wet because I do want this to kind of soften together, but I do want that to be a little bit more dry so that it is a little more separated as far as a layer. Okay, let's darken this green that we were using here. Maybe bring in a little bit more of those kind of blue hues. I want things to be darker. I want them to be a little bit more vibrant as well for the area that's closer. And then I will also be dipping in, I'm going to spray into this blue. I'm going to be dipping into that blue to kind of create the shadows that are going to be kind of along this as well as along kind of the front part where the bottoms of the bushes would be. All right, so here we go. We have 4 minutes. Just trying to kind of pop some of this in. And also, you know, if I'm doing one of these lessons and you're like, okay, I was like totally in this until we did this area here, you know what? You can always edit things out. So you could actually have just left your painting with the sky and the water and those islands, and it would turn out beautifully. And that's okay. If you're not in a place where you're kind of ready to experiment, you don't have to. I am doing this, so I'm popping in that blue kind of along the bottom. I am doing some experimenting, and part of that is because I want to show you guys how to kind of problem solve live. All right, we're going to take some even darker blue, and I'm going to pop that, ooh, there's a Moogie here, right along here to really kind of show the shadow where that path would be. All right, we need to get some more of those really bright pink. Oh no, my watercolors are drying out. I got 2.5 minutes. We can do this. All right, we're gonna pop in some of these. Now, I've got quite a bit of this in there and I wanna be able to control how much is actually coming out, so I am gonna tap this off. And I'm just kind of trying to drop in. This part is definitely going to be my least favorite part of the painting, but I am glad I'm experimenting with it because it is showing me a little bit about kind of how to create some of these effects. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to dry my brush off. I'm going to grab that standing water, and then I am going to dry for really quick because I want to add in a couple little details here. So this is going to be turned on. It might be loud. It's going to happen in 3, 2, 1. All right, it's not fully dry, but I do need to keep going. So we're going to make this path, give it a little texture. Bring in a little bit here. I'm just trying to get a little variation as far as the color here, so it's a little bit separate from that. I probably should have brought, I've got an idea for the next one to kind of make the path a little bit better. And then let's get some of this green. We're going to add in, I've got 30 seconds. I wish I could have taken a little more time on this part, but I'm just adding in a little more texture here. Let's put in a little bit more of that real vibrant color. Oh man. Okay. It's not terrible, but we just hit time, so I gotta stop painting. It's not my favorite, but it's not terrible. Now, usually what I do is I take a second to kind of critique what I've done and things that I wish I would have done a little differently, as well as kind of think about areas that maybe I overthought and maybe would actually help me in the next round because we have half the amount of time, okay? So what I'm going to do here is 2 things. One, I think I want to do a couple parts. The first thing is I think the way I did the sky is going to be just fine. I don't think I need to really change much about that. Other than I'm going to bring my yellow up, or no, I think it's better to not have quite as much because I really struggled down here. So I'm going to try to actually embrace the fact that my sky is a little bit further down so that I don't have to do quite as much down here because this really gave me the most trouble. But honestly, I don't even know if I had a whole bunch more time if I could have made that look. I mean, I probably could have made it look a little better, but you know. The other thing is I do want to make sure that I'm encroaching a little bit more up here to kind of like give this an ending. So maybe it like this path kind of disappears. So I might actually make it so the path kind of comes out more like this, or even kind of off to another direction and then kind of vanishes behind something. That might be something I'm going to do. The other thing I could edit out is this. I think I might keep that for the 10-minute. We'll see. The other thing is I probably don't need to do 2 layers for the bushes. I probably could have just done them all as one, given it a really good dry, and then added in some of these details at the very end. So All right, we're going to be starting. Oops, I should have stopped that. Oh no, I always do this. Stop and then reset. So we should have most of our colors, although I think I do want to, I'm going to darken up this one just a little bit before we get started. The next one we only have 10 minutes to do. So I did prepare this color beforehand, so I'm going to do the same for this one. And I think I want it to be a bit darker. So in general, I'm just adding more of those same colors in, but not more water, so that it's just a little bit deeper. And I'm going to try to do more or less the same thing I did before. All right, that is a little bit deeper, and that'll be perfect. So I'm using, it's a size 12. It's one I call my Wonder Brush because you can do pretty much everything with it. It's got synthetic bristles, and you don't have to buy mine specifically. You just want to look for a round brush that has synthetic bristles and is a size 8, 10, or 12. I mean, I do like mine, but it doesn't have to be mine, because this is an inclusive community here, and we all have different access to supplies. All right, we're going to be getting started. How many of you guys need another second to catch up from the previous one? Or give me thumbs up if you're ready to go. I got the references from Unsplash, which is a royalty-free website. We got thumbs up and thumbs down. All right, so these are going to start to feel a little bit more pressured. The funniest part of this is usually I end up liking my 10-minute one better, because the 20-minute one, I was kind of trying to figure it out. I was kind of seeing what did and didn't work, and I'm able to kind of learn some lessons. But also I kind of just free up and just kind of lean into it, and you have to just go with what the watercolor does and what your brush does on the paper, and you just have to like move through it, move past it, and just keep going. So embrace the chaos is what I'm going to say is going to happen in these next 2 rounds. We just want to go with it, and we just want to trust that what we're doing is fine, and trust that we're going to be able to either make something, or also trust that it's okay in practice to not have everything turn out perfectly. We can learn things without everything being perfect. Okay, the one I did before, and I will do a review of all 3 of them at the very end of this. Okay, all right. I do have a hard stop today, so we're going to get going. So I hope that you're ready. I've got some of this in my brush because I'm really ready to go. I will probably be talking through less of what I'm doing. I will still try, but we have less time, so I need to go. All right, so I'm going to get started now in 3, 2, and 1. All right, starting the same, putting some of this darker purpley color kind of up across right here. Then I'm going to wash my brush and grab some water and just kind of pull that down a little bit. I'm going to dip into some of those pinks. More water. Then we're going to go into yellow and orange. More water. We could pre-wet if we wanted to, if you wanted things to really, really flow, but I don't always like to pre-wet. Sometimes I do, but not always. Ooh, that was a lot of orange for this one. It's okay, I'm going with it. I love painting sunsets because every single one turns out a little different. It's kind of like they're my version of snowflakes, I guess. Washing with water. A little more yellow, and let's pop in a little bit more kind of bright pinks in a couple areas. Ooh, that one is really bright. Little water, let's bring that down here. Okay, I gotta just call that good because we are already 1.5 minutes in, so we don't have much more time. All right, this is gonna be turned on. This is gonna be a little bit loud, but it's gonna happen in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, now right before I went to dry that, I managed to drop some water there. That's what's happening there. I don't often fix things like that while we're doing exercise like this because it's a good opportunity to kind of show you guys how I'm going to adjust to that. And the way I'm going to adjust to that is I'm going to get some of this darker kind of black gray color, and I'm going to make sure that one of my mountains goes over that so that I can kind of disguise what's happening there. All right, let's mark out our horizon line like that. And then let's bring, this one's going to kind of come up here, fill in. And then this one's going to kind of come up here. And then we're not going to be able to see the entirety of that, or it'll be at least kind of hidden behind what's going on over there. Okay? Let's take just a second to make a couple of those little lines. I'm just going to do this with the orange and the pink, and I don't think I need quite as many. I think they'll add a little bit of something, but I think I spent too much time on that last time for the amount of impact that it had. Because that's just going to be a little kind of peekaboo through thing. Okay, I'm going to dry again. We're almost halfway through. Not quite, but so this will be on for about 10 seconds in 3, 2, and 1. All right, that should be dry. Yes, for those of you who are just joining, we're doing a time challenge. So the first one we took 20 minutes to paint, then 10, then 5. I'm darkening this color. I'm going to add in that little offshoot over here. Probably don't need to put this in, but I am just because I feel like it. The idea behind this exercise is to help you loosen up and help you learn where to edit things in and out. We're about halfway through this second one. This one is a 10-minute. So I'm just getting the green going. And this is that area where I was like, I think I probably did a little bit too much as far as the layering on this. So we're just going to pop in those bushes here. Okay, and then also I'm going to try to pop in. This is going to be my little road this time, making it a little bit different. Putting some water in here. Because we don't have much more time. I mean, we have 5 minutes, so we still have half the amount of time, but man, it is going to go fast. All right. I've got green kind of washed into there. Then we're going to dip into some darker greens. We're just going to kind of tap this in because the parts that are further away, they don't have to have a ton of definition, but having a bit of texture is going to be helpful. Also, I think that more of that purpley type color will actually be prettier, so I'm putting a little bit of purple instead of just that straight pink. And let's tap that at the tops of some of these. We've got a little under 4 minutes left. Just kind of trying to create some of the texture of how some of these plants actually do kind of stick up. Okay. I'm also going to create a little shadow by grabbing some blue. And let's pop that. Woo! Actually didn't mean for that to go over there. I wanted it right over here. Let's dry that. All right, now I'm going to take a second again to dry this. We have 3 minutes remaining, so if you're sensitive to noises, this is going to come on in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, that should be dry. I got the dryer off of Amazon. And now I'm just going to kind of come in with, this is on dry paper now, or dryish. There are probably a couple little spots, but we're limited on time. So we're just going to bring this in. And then now I can kind of just, this is probably also not the perfect answer to this. But we're learning together. Make it a little bit fiddly at the bottom here. I do like this version better so far as the bushes in the foreground. I have less than 2 minutes left. Whoop, okay, let's add in some more of that kind of purpley tops, because they're kind of the star of the show in this. Hopefully I can do them more justice in this. Maybe not. That's okay. I mean, it is still better than the previous one, I believe, at least in my opinion. Everybody's going to have a slightly different opinion on how they like the things to look and what they think kind of works or does not work. I've got 1 minute left and I still want to do a little something to that road, so I'm just going to come in and let's put a little bit of that gray here. Wash my brush and let's just kind of soften it in. And then I'm going to dare to just barely touch these together so they kind of blend just a little bit. It's not perfect, but I do think it's better than the previous one. All right, we got 30 seconds. I'm going to add in just a little bit more of this kind of darker blue color right along kind of, ooh, that was way too much in my brush. Just to create a little shadowing. With my last couple seconds I've got left here. Okay, we're going to have a real work against the clock situation for the next one. All right, that's 10 minutes. Brush is down. All right, so real quick, between the two, this is almost always how this happens, where, yeah, I like my 10-minute one better than my 20-minute one, and that's exactly what I'm kind of trying to show is there were certain things, I mean, I think I did a better job on a couple things on the 20-minute one, but especially this area, I mean, this looks so overworked in some areas. We really get kind of stuck into the details. And a lot of times with watercolor, a little bit more just kind of letting it go, letting it do what it needs to. And I don't even know if I really necessarily will want to add in that front layer that's a little more textured on the next one because I only have 5 minutes. And maybe that will actually make it look better. Okay, so if you're just joining, what we're doing today is we're doing a time challenge. So we're painting this painting 3 times. We only had 20 minutes on this one. We only had 10 on this. Next, we're going to do 5 minutes. Now, this is going to be tricky. We do need to be kind of methodical. So I have to figure out what I can cut out. I think I can cut 2 things out. I can cut out adding in this little part here. And maybe we'll just go a little bit darker with this first layer of mountains and just kind of let it be. The second thing is I might just cut out this little path. It is kind of competing with some of the other stuff, and it does take me some additional time to do. And then we'll just have to kind of wait and see if I have time for the secondary kind of business down here. Now, the other thing I will say is I am using one single brush for these paintings today because I'm trying to do a couple things. One, I'm trying to show you that you don't have to use a ton of different supplies, and this is more likely what a beginner is going to have. So sometimes it's nice to work within the constraints of that. But if I were doing this kind of on my own and I were really trying to take a whole bunch of time, I might switch over to something like one of those Deerfoot brushes or one of these brushes that's called a grainer brush to make some of those details. See how it's got the two different lengths of these, which can kind of help with some of those things. But, you know, the idea is that you can follow along with these tutorials and you might not have... I have a silly amount of brushes because this is what I do for a job, and you might just have a couple brushes. So I want you to be able to actually follow along with what I'm doing. All right. I have all sorts of brands brushes. The one I'm using today is mine, that Texture, the Grainer brush. Where did I just put that? I have a couple of these. This one's a Royal and Langnickel that I like, and then I have some other ones over that I actually use for acrylic painting more often, and the brand names are no longer on them because I have covered them with paint. All right, so we're going to get started. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go with your 5-minute painting. This one is where the real chaos is going to come in, but we can do this. I know we can do this. So the paints I'm using, I have some paints manufactured and then I make my own paints as well. So this is my unicorn food set of 18, and then I added in some of my handmade ones that I really like. Chaos painting, here we come. All right, we're doing the same painting. We just have 5 minutes to do it though. Okay. Let's take a deep breath together. Okay, 1, 2, 3, deep breath. All right, we're ready to go. I'm filling my brush because I filled my brush beforehand with both the other ones. So, starting in 3, 2, and 1. Cannot overthink anything in this one. We just have to go with what is happening. And yeah, I'm probably not going to talk too much during this one. I will try. Going into some yellow. I'm going to really lean into that bright yellow there. And then wash that down, and that's all I have time to do with that one. I'm going to be turning on that dryer, so it's going to get a little loud for a second in 3, 2, and 1. All right, I'm just gonna hope that's dry enough because we gotta move on to these mountains. I need to make sure this is a dark enough color for this layer because we're only doing the one. It's gonna dry lighter. So we just need to make sure we get it nice and dark. There we go, that'll work. Start by defining that horizon line straight across. Ooh, I actually just went totally off book in the shape of those mountains, but that's okay. And because I am working faster, we might see some weird kind of separation because the paper might still be a little bit wet or a little bit dry. You know what? I kind of like that break that's there. I'm going to leave that. And then we can come up into this. I don't know, kind of looks like a little something. Little something. I'm going to not do the ripples in the water. I can always add them in if I seem to have a couple minutes at the end, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to edit out that little path, so I'm just going to bring in, this is going to be our, oh, I might need to be able to add in some of those ripples, but we're just going to go straight across here, putting lots of water in some of that green. We have 2 minutes left. Drop, 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 drop. I'm just trying to get some texture going in these colors. I don't want this to be super even. I need a little more water here, though, for this to actually move around. It is chaos painting time. We have less than 2 minutes left. Okay, I'm going to drop in some blue towards the bottom to get some shadowing. And then we'll come in to some of those bright pink purple colors. Okay. I have just over a minute left. Less than 1 minute, 50 seconds left to add in whatever little details we're kind of able to do. Maybe just a little texture. I don't know why I'm doing this part. This part's not helping. I'm going to drop in some of that neon because I got 20 seconds in a couple areas. Okay, I am going to take a second to put some of those ripples in. Got 20 seconds left. This is my elbow, by the way. I'm rotating at the elbow on the page, or on the table, so it's making that funny noise. Ooh. I got 5 seconds left. And there we go. Done. Whew. All right, so we're going to review really quick because I got to get headed out soon. We did 5 minutes. That was, you know what, honestly, I think I like this one the best. All right, let's do a quick review. So, if you're just joining now, what we just did was a 3 painting challenge, but it's a time challenge. So we did use this as the reference photo for all of them. And then we did first 20 minutes. We took 20 minutes to paint this one. And then we took 10, and then we took 5. And the idea behind this is to be able to learn what to kind of edit out, what to not to overthink, and also just kind of learn to go with the flow, as well as this is a painting like that. I chose that reference photo. I saw it this morning, was the first time I saw it. I have not painted it. You guys helped me kind of choose the one we painted. And so part of this is also me showing you how to kind of dissect and figure out how to paint a landscape. And so we do spend a lot of time on this one, figuring it out, so it does kind of impact the results to a degree. But also we spend a ton of time overthinking areas when we just kind of have as much time as we possibly need. I mean, technically 20 minutes for a painting is still pretty quick, but in comparison, when we have more time to just kind of like fiddle around with things, we kind of overwork certain parts of it. Now, there are a couple things that I like about this first painting. I do like the sky, I think probably the best out of the 3, because it has that nice, I like that background, and I did kind of force that intentionally. It was starting to dry. I washed my brush, I kind of put a little in there, and then that does kind of help. So I do think that this one and the water on this one are the best out of the 3. But I don't love this, and I would say the mountains are more or less the same on all 3 of them, except for we just didn't have time to do the second layer on the other one. So this one is probably not my favorite, but it is. All right, now next we have the 10-minute one. On this one, because we were a little bit more stressed with time, I did accidentally make a mistake, did not have time to correct it, so I just had to try to disguise it. You can still see it, but it is kind of disguised. We also did make a breakthrough on how much less work we actually need to do with the foreground plants, even though I still kind of overthought parts of it and spent a little extra time. I probably should have spent that time on the water because I think it could have used it. And then this is our 5-minute one. And honestly, this might be my favorite. Like, I do wish I had taken a little more time and a little more care on the mountains and on the water, but this one I feel like had the most potential. At least, guys, we're all going to have different opinions, and I think it's always so funny to see which one I think turns out the best. But like, I do think that this gives me the idea better of, you know, these kind of luscious, vibrant plants in the foreground than trying to paint every single little one in, just kind of leaving your imagination up to it. And they're like a supporting character in the rest of this. All right, what do you guys think? I got just a second left here on here, but what do you think? Which was your favorite of the ones that you did? If you followed along, do you like your 20, your 10, or your 5-minute best? Five, 10. A lot of 5s. You like the look on the plants on the 10. They do have more texture. So yeah, somebody mentioned in here, when you're nervous to start painting. This is kind of a funny one because this is a great one for if you're nervous to start painting, because the pressure, which will make you nervous while you're painting it, but like, you kind of have to accept in a challenge like this that there's a pretty good chance that it's not going to turn out exactly how you want, because, you know, we're starting with, we've never painted something before. So we're already starting off on a foot of like, there's a chance this might not work. But then as we reduce the time, we realize like, okay, now it's not just me. I'm not the entire reason why this might not work. I might just not have enough time. And doing an exercise like this is really great because those fears that you have about messing things up and everything needing to be perfect are going to be really confronted. And when you learn that like, hey, it's okay that it didn't turn out fine, it's going to actually get you more into the habit of playing with your paints and realizing that you don't have to make something that's absolutely perfect on your first go. Sometimes it's worth just spending the time to do it. So does it work if you only shorten? Can you learn each time being longer? Yeah, a lot of times artists they will actually build up. So they'll start with like a 5-minute little exercise. A lot of times I see this with flowers, like they'll take like a single rose and they'll take just 5 minutes to just try to like, or they'll even do it with the number of brush strokes. They'll limit themselves by like how many they're allowed to use. And they'll start by really starting with the simplified. So it'll help them get an idea of values. And then they kind of do like a little more and a little more. So you could do this in the other way. This is just my personal preference where I like to kind of move backwards. But we could try one day with a one where we go a little bit longer, a little bit longer. All right, well, I will be, as long as TikTok saves this, I will be posting this to YouTube in the next couple days. So if you came in halfway through and you want to actually go through the whole thing, there will be a chance to do that. If not, I hope everybody has a really wonderful day. And if you feel like tagging me in a video or on Instagram, I would love to see what you painted today. Have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon.